What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Machiavelli Mills TV. So this video is basically, it's been in the making. It's been a long time coming for this video. I am a boxing fan. I'm a boxing fanatic. I grew up watching boxing with both of my uncles. They were humongous fight fans. I'm talking about, we watched all type of pay-per-views. I remember watching the Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson fight when I was a little itty bitty boy, right? Now, I'm only 29 years old, but I remember my uncle ordering these fights and watching these fights. We watched James Toney. We watched Roy Jones Jr. We watched Floyd Mayweather all the time, right? So I grew up watching the sport. And I've noticed the certain type of fans, fight fans, in the boxing game. Some individuals are fans of fighters. There are three categories. Certain people are fans of fighters strictly because of their skill, their boxing prowess, their ring generalship, the way that their fighting abilities and their tactics resonate with them. Like, man, you know what? That dude is a beast. I identify with that, man. I really like watching that guy fight. I like his fighting style. Another fight fan supports fighters strictly because they are of the same ethnicity, right? I can watch a fight and see a guy that comes from where I come from or represents my people, you know, and represents the plight of my people, and he looks like me. They identify with that guy in the ring. They're going to support him, right? I've seen it all the time. Filipinos with Manny Pacquiao. You know, you had Mexicans with Canelo Alvarez, with Oscar De La Hoya. Puerto Ricans with Miguel Cotto. Black Americans with Floyd Mayweather Jr. Then you have another segment of fight fans who support a fighter strictly because that fighter they support is an adversary of a guy who they don't like. He's an adversary of a guy who represents things that they despise in America. I see it all the time. People strictly supported certain fighters because they couldn't stand Floyd Mayweather Jr. He's an adversary of Floyd Mayweather Jr. He represents everything we despise. We don't like him. I've seen that type of thing happen. And that certain thing that I'm talking about, the last fight fan that I just described, that's exactly the fans who are like rallying behind Terence Crawford in his fight against his adversary, Errol Spence Jr. Now, Terence Crawford is an exceptional fighter, an amazing fighter, highly skilled. I have him pound for pound for number one for what he did across those three different weight classes, right? 135, 140, 147. Great talent, was undisputed at 140, an extraordinary feat, phenomenal feat. However, I noticed that people are strictly supporting Terence Crawford, not everybody, because some people just feel like Terence Crawford is the better fighter, he has the better skills, he has the better ability, he has more tools in his toolbox, and that's perfectly fine. Some people support Terence Crawford because they just a fan of who he is, and he may come from their hometown, Omaha, Nebraska. He may be a guy that they just resonate with. That's cool. But I know, I see the rhetoric. I see what happened. I paid close attention to the fanfare behind Terence Crawford, and I see what it is. A lot of Terence Crawford's fight fans only support Terence to counteract or oppose the Ldbc. Now, you may ask, what is the Ldbc? And the Ldbc stands for the Lions Den Boxing Community. Now, I don't want to misquote or I don't want to misrepresent what those brothers stand for, but I'll just give a synopsis of what I feel like the Ldbc is. And anybody from the Ldbc can come in my comment section and correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like the Ldbc was created, is a group of YouTubers, black YouTubers, who came together to support the black fighters. Why do you ask that? Because the black fight fan is one of the least represented fans in the sport of boxing, period. Everybody knows that the Hispanic population, basically that fanfare, those group of fans, they are the biggest supporters of the sport, right? They are the biggest supporter of the sport. A lot of black people in our communities, like, they don't watch boxing like they do football and basketball. So the Ldbc says, you know what? We got to support these young black men. They put in their lives on the line for the entertainment of not only the American population, but of the entire world. They're laying their lives on the line to entertain the entire world and, of course, get paid, but to also is for our entertainment. So you know what? We got to support these young men. We got to come out to these fights so they can see some faces that look like theirs in the arena. So they can see, you know what, my people, they supporting me. They represent for me. They coming out and or you know what, they're coming out to support me. They're coming out to show love. They're coming out to show that, you know, they're behind me. The Ldbc probably was like, you know what, we got to buy these guys pay-per-views because they noticed the trend. If you're not playing the villain, if you don't wear the black hat, the black fighter does not receive the same fanfare of Canelo Alvarez, of somebody like a Canelo Alvarez, despite his skill set. I'm not hating on Canelo. Canelo's a huge mega star. He's a tremendous star. But you can wonder why Canelo Alvarez is a tremendous star when Canelo he does not speak English all the time. You rarely ever hear Canelo Alvarez speak English. And he's a mega star because his community, his people, the Mexican population, support him. Even Hispanic people who are not Mexican, they support him. And so, you know what, black fighters, like, you know, the Ldbc says, you know what? It's a lot of young, talented black fighters out here who have great skill sets. So we got to support them. We got to come out and give them the same support that the Hispanic population does, the Mexican population does with Canelo Alvarez. And so the Ldbc was formed from that, right? All a genuine thing. And I support it all the way through, still support it to this day. However, you have a certain segment of the American population and of the world who cringe when black people talk about race. Oh, no, race. Oh, I don't know. Jeez, what are you black folks talking about race? Oh, my God, race. They do all of that type of shit, right? All that goof-ass shit that they do when black people talk about race. They turn their nose up. They get disgusted. They cringe, right? So there's a certain fans on YouTube who despise the Ldbc. The Ldbc strongly supports Errol Spence Jr. They once were extremely supporting Terence Bud Crawford in droves until Terence Bud Crawford, even though he's a great fighter, Terence gave them his ass to kiss, and I saw it all the time. These people, they were trying to interview him. He would little boy them, send his little mans to go interview with them, never want to talk to them for real like that. Always, he would shun them, and they were the ones who were supporting him when other people were saying he wasn't shit. The black YouTubers were supporting Terence Bud Crawford, and I saw it firsthand, right? They were the ones buying his fights, showing up to his fights and all of that. They were doing that. When the other fight fans were saying he wasn't shit when he was looked at as an adversary to Manny Pacquiao and a guy who could defeat Manny Pacquiao. Those same people who were, you know, the people who were who are now supporting Terence Bud Crawford, not all of them, of course. Many of the people who are now supporting Terence Bud Crawford said he wasn't shit. When he was looked at as an adversary to Manny Pacquiao, they were downing him, downplaying him, and the Ldbc was lifting Terence Bud Crawford up. So, of course, they felt some way when they say, you know what, damn, Terence ain't fucking with us like that. What's wrong? What's going on, right? So, you know what, they said, we're going to back up off of him, right? And so they continue to support Errol Spence Jr., right? And some fight fans saw that. They said, you know what? Oh, hell no. Since they support Errol Spence Jr., we're going to support Terence Bud Crawford just to counteract them, just to oppose them. And that's what's going on right now. I see it verbatim. Some people only like Terence Bud Crawford, only support him to counteract or oppose the Ldbc. You know? Errol Spence Jr. is a guy, and if you look at his social media, if you looked at certain things he retweets, certain things he puts on his Instagram story, he's a guy who displays knowledge of self. He's aware of who he is. He's aware of his people. He takes pride in his people. He's Jamaican. He's of Jamaican descent and African American and of Black American descent. Right? His mother's a Black American. His father's a Jamaican American, Jamaican Black American, and he takes pride in his Black ancestry. He speaks out about certain things going on in the Black community on his Instagram, on his Twitter, right? Almost in the same type of passion that Deontay Wilder did. Not as passionately because Deontay was just so, wore it on his chest all the time. But Errol Spence Jr. is a guy that never shies away from supporting his people, right? Certain things that he says, how he says that he wants his people to, how he wasn't mad when Mikey Garcia had more fans than him or had a huge fan base in Dallas and he was getting a whole lot of fanfare in his hometown when they fought. And he said, you know what? We have a humongous Hispanic population in Dallas. So they supposed to ride for their people, just like my people supposed to ride for me, right? When he spoke, hey, you know what? When they asked him, when Bomac said he was never going to fight he was never going to order an Errol Spence Jr. fight. He was going to stream it. He was going to bootleg it because he ain't buying his fights. And they asked Errol Spence, what you going to do when Terence Bud Crawford fight? He said, I'm not going to stream it. I'm not going to bootleg it. I'm going to watch his fight. I'm going to pay for his fight. I support black fighters, right? When he talks about when he got Khalid Muhammad tattooed on him, Malcolm X tattooed on him, right? When he talks and when he quotes Malcolm X and he says certain things on YouTube, and on his Instagram, on his Twitter, when he called out Oscar De La Hoya for his mistreatment of black fighters under his stable, that lets you know that brother got knowledge of self. Certain people saw that and said, hell no, we not fucking with that dude Errol Spence Jr. He like that race shit. He talk about that race shit. He talk about black pride. He talk about, knowledge of self as a black man, right? He identifies with that pro-black rhetoric. We're going to separate out. No. We're going to support Terence Crawford because the Ldbc is at odds with Terence Bud Crawford. And they thought Terence Bud Crawford was a I don't see color type of black man. That's what it is, right? So they use fake fandom of Terence Crawford as proxy in their Ldbc or PBC hate. That's what that is. They don't like the PBC, and I know what that is. Al Heyman, a black man, runs the PBC, Premier Boxing Champions. And some of them say, oh, Al Heyman is bad for the sport because he doesn't get certain fights to be made. But some of that other shit is because a lot of the black fighters look at Al as the black savior amongst them because, they left certain other promotional companies citing racial bias, like Terence Crawford did with Bob Arum, even though he's being sued for breach of contract, but he also cited racial bias in that. We're going to get to that in a minute, though. But yeah, like, a lot of them came from other stables, other promotional companies that people that they said were, look, you know what? They were racially biased against us. We're gonna go to the black guy, the black man, and he does us well. They speak good on Al. Al treats us well for the most part. Some of them have gripes with Al. But a lot of them say, I can't never stray away from Al because Al did us good. And even non-black fighters talk about how Al did them good and did them great in comparison to other promotional companies that did them bad, right? So they looking like, hold on, they trying to make this PBC, this Al Heyman black dude, this savior. He's trying to be a black savior, talking about, the black fighters speak about how they got away from guys in other stables who probably were against them and had some racial prejudice in them, and they go and run into Al Heyman. Oh, we don't like that race shit. We don't like that race shit. We don't like when the black people bring up that race shit. We don't like when they talk about racism and racial divide. We don't like that. Oh my God, no. How dare they go support Al Heyman and then claim him and uphold him as the savior? So they don't like the PBC. And a lot of the PBC stable has black fighters. So, also PBC is code word for black fighters as well. I've learned that too from being on YouTube. PBC stands for black fighters. That's a code word for black fighters. I can see that because a lot of the black fighters are over there, right? It's of course, a lot of non-black fighters in other promotional companies and so on and so forth. But y'all get what I'm saying. Y'all get my drift, right? But yeah. A lot of fans supported Terence Bud Crawford because they thought he was an I don't see color black man. They thought he was a black man who don't talk about race because Terence never did, for the most part, until the Bob Arum lawsuit, right? He didn't talk about race. They looked at him like, you know what? He over there with Bob Arum. So, he's over there with Bob Arum. Take that, PBC. He don't want to be over there with that black dude y'all upholding as the savior from racism. He's over there with Bob Arum. He's over there with with a white guy who been running boxing for a long time. We gonna ride with that guy. He's over there in Bob Arum's stable. Yeah, Bob, go ride with Bob, Terence. That's what they doing. Don't be on that pro-black shit, Terence. Yeah. And then they look at where he's from, Omaha, Nebraska. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all this. I'm gonna be honest. I was ignorant of the demographic in Omaha, Nebraska at one point, right? Me being ignorant, I thought Omaha, Nebraska was a similar place like Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, right? South Dakota, a place that has a minuscule black population, right? And some people may identify with that. Hey, Terence Crawford probably don't identify. Some of them was looking like, hey, Terence Crawford probably don't identify with that. He probably don't identify with that pro-black shit because, hey, he's from Nebraska, man. There's probably not a black population there. If you don't live in Omaha or are not from the surrounding area, you probably don't know it's black people there. I learned that it was black people in Omaha, Nebraska, a nice population of black folks, when I was in college at Mississippi Valley State University, and we had people from Omaha, black folks, that came to my historically black college and university, right? One of my homegirls, Lyric, sung the national anthem at one of Terence Bud Crawford's fights. I got to figure out, I'm putting in the comment section where y'all can see lyrics singing the national anthem. But people who are against the pro-black rhetoric that aren't from Omaha probably look like, hey man, Terence probably is a solid guy, man. He's from Omaha. He's not from around those black populations. He probably don't speak, he don't identify with that pro-black shit. He's one of the good old guys, the good old boys. He's a good guy, Terence Crawford. He's a good guy, right? That's what they were doing. They were lifting him up as a good guy because he didn't show an allegiance to pro-black rhetoric. He didn't do it the same way Errol Spence did. Because they was fucking with Errol Spence until he started saying that pro-black shit and calling out Oscar De La Hoya and all of that. And when he said those comments after the Mikey Garcia fight about how black fighters should support him and how Hispanic fans should support Mikey Garcia. He said that black fans should support him. They were looking like, hold on, guy. Hold on, buddy. That Errol Spence Jr., I thought he was different. Guy. Oh my God, he's one of those race fuckers. He's one of those race guys. That's what that was, right? So they looked at Terence Bud Crawford. Terence never said those things. And they say, Terence gotta be on the righteous side. He gotta be one of those good guys, right? Terence Bud Crawford never showed an allegiance to the pro-black rhetoric until he cited racial bias in his reasons for suing Bob Arum. Now, it's under breach of contract is how he's suing him, but he also cited racial bias in it, you know? And when people saw that, a lot of the Bud supporters lost their fucking mind. They said, oh my God, I thought Bud was different, guy. I thought he was different, man. I didn't know he was with this pro-black shit. I didn't know he was talking this race shit. This shit is atrocious, man. They're brainwashing him, man. They're getting to him, man. He's leaning towards the Al Heyman side, man. The PBC guys, he's getting just like those guys, brother. That's what the shit they was doing. Because they didn't like that Bud talked about race, identified racial bias, and, you know, his reasonings for suing Bob Arum. Now, it would be hard to prove racial bias unless he has some type of recording of Bob Arum saying something like that. So you swing under breach of contract. And people were like, I saw a lot of them turn on Terence Crawford. But a lot of them are still riding with Bud because he still doesn't preach that pro-black stuff tauntingly, even though he's still with the same black woman that he has all of his children with, which is definitely pro-black in that instance of being with that black woman. Never gonna slight Terence. Terence is an exceptional fighter, and I am aware that people support Terence Bud Crawford because he is an accomplished fighter. He's a great fighter with great skills. Some people just ride with Bud because they feel like he has more tools in his toolbox. He's a guy who achieved a lot. I even have him as number one pound for pound because of his achievements from the 135 division, 140 division, 147 division, winning titles in all of them, and becoming undisputed at 140, right? Some guys just really like Bud because of his skill set. But it's a large segment of Terence Bud Crawford's fan base that only rock with him because he is an adversary to the guy that talks that pro-black shit. He's an adversary to a guy that's supported by the pro-black YouTubers. So they don't like that shit. So they're going to ride with Bud because Bud doesn't seem to align with that stuff. He don't seem to align. His heart doesn't seem to beat with the pro-black rhetoric the same way that Errol Spence Jr. does. He doesn't display knowledge of self in the same way that Errol Spence Jr. does or the Ldbc does. And I'm not saying that Terence Bud Crawford isn't pro-black. I'm not saying that Terence Bud Crawford doesn't align with pro-black rhetoric. I'm just saying he doesn't show it much at all. So they love that, right? But when he made that, he said that against Bob Arum, and he said, you know, I'm suing him for racial bias. And I can see because Bud, like, look at the shit that Bob Arum was saying about Bud. He lose money with Bud. He ain't right. Bud can't sell out. He talking about his own guy under his own fighter under his own stable. But yet and still Lomachenko is getting supported like a motherfucker and he's lost. Right? He getting all the fanfare and support, but you ain't going, and he don't really even be speaking English. He don't even be speaking English most of the time. You supporting him, but you ain't gonna support Bud. That shit crazy. That shit crazy, man. He don't even be speaking English. So I'm trying to figure out where is the disconnect between the two, right? But then I looked at, like I said, it was a switch when Bud Crawford, when we seen Bud say, I'm suing for racial bias, and he cited racial bias in his reason for suing Bob Arum. I looked at the comment sections. When the news first broke, and I'm gonna read y'all some of the comments to let y'all know I ain't lying. I can screenshot some of these comments and put it on the community thing so y'all can see this shit for yourself. This is a comment under a video discussing Terence Bud Crawford suing Bob Arum for racial bias. This is the quote. As a consumer, the reason I preferred supporting Bud to Spence was what I thought was his more straight persona. You know what straight means, right? Not with their pro-black shit. Not with their pro-black shit and just being an honest guy, just being a guy who don't see color. They thought Bud was one of those guys, right? So then he said, strike one was when he said Canelo ain't fighting black fighters, right? I thought that was beneath Bud's character. With these racial allegations, I just realized I had him on a pedestal. Now I have him in the muck. I ain't even gonna drink Budweiser from now on, right? Now, another comment. I do love Crawford, but this racism shit is crazy. Makes no sense, to be honest. He reaching. Oh, really? Right? Because how the fuck, they talking about it's Terrence's job to promote himself. Brother, he has a promoter. If he can promote Lomachenko, who don't be talking English and all of that, and he promote him to the world, he can promote Bud the same fucking way. Cut it out, right? So then, another comment. OMG, if this is real, it makes me feel embarrassed for Crawford. Holy shit, I can't believe he's pulling the race card because Heyman, a black man, wouldn't let him fight his fighters. Hold on, Bob Arum sitting and told y'all. There wasn't no plan for him to fight Errol Spence. They wasn't trying to get that fight. So what the fuck are you talking about because Al Heyman didn't do it? Come on, man. Cut that shit out. Cut it out, man. You know, y'all know what time this shit is. Y'all know what this is. All the way through and through. But you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, proves my point. A lot of the supporters of Terence Bud Crawford are guys like this. And them same guys that are now, and again, some of them are reverted away from him. And a lot of them are still staying because Terence doesn't talk the same shit that the Ldbc or Errol Spence talk. So they still gonna ride with him. But just look at the language that they used. I had him on a pedestal. I thought it was beneath Bud's character. He thought that pro-black shit was beneath his character, was beneath him. Right? He thought that shit was beneath Bud, that Bud was never gonna be a pro-black guy. Because a lot of them despise that pro-black shit. And pro-black just means supporting your people, supporting and uplifting your folks. It don't mean hate no other race. It don't mean down in no other race. It don't mean despising another group of people. It just means supporting your own, supporting your folks because they need your support. They need your embrace. They need your love. They need your support to stay afloat, especially in a sport like boxing. Because if those black men ain't talking wild, ain't being disrespectful, ain't playing a villain, ain't being arrogant, poking their chest out like Adrian Broner, they not going to get the same support of a Canelo Alvarez. They're not going to get the same support as a Triple G. They're not going to get the same support as a Lomachenko. So the Ldbc is necessary to keep these, to get these black fans to be, the black fighters to be supported in ways that they're not. They're not represented because a lot of the black fan base, a lot of the black people don't watch boxing like that. I watch it, but a lot of our people don't watch it. And a lot of the other fans ain't paying to see them fight like that. They're not paying, even though these black fighters are great, they're not paying to see them the same way they're paying to see Canelo Alvarez and Triple G or Lomachenko. Okay, so the Ldbc is necessary despite what people saying, right? So anyway, get back to what I was saying. So yeah, a lot of them are still riding. A lot of them probably jumped ship when Bud did the racial bias thing, but a lot of them still riding with Bud. They still riding with Bud because they feel like, oh, he still ain't taking all the way pro-black stance the same way Errol Spence has. So they're going to ride with Bud, and the only reason they riding with him because it's like, oh my God, at least Bud he's at odds with the Ldbc, so we going to ride with him. We riding with him. We riding with this guy. And those same people that are now riding with Bud were saying Bud wasn't shit. They were saying he wasn't shit when he was fighting when it was looked at or when he was rumored to be an opponent of Manny Pacquiao back in like 2015. They were saying, oh, he ain't shit. He ain't that. And their opinion has not changed of Terence Bud Crawford because of achievements. I can tell you that much. Their opinion changed of Terence Bud Crawford when he became an adversary to the Ldbc. And now the Ldbc don't just look at him as the enemy. So I shouldn't even say that. They don't look at him and despise him as an enemy. They have a difference of opinion and agreements. Their viewpoints and how they view things are different. Because I'm like the Ldbc. If I'm riding with you and supporting you all the time and in droves, and you give me your ass to kiss by shunning me and just you only do interviews with these big media outlets, but you won't interview the black man that's trying to be supporting your fights and be at your fights and watching your pay-per-views and uplifting you. You won't give me 2 to 3 minutes of your time. You seen your little man to talk to me instead of you. Like, I'm not gonna ride. I ain't riding with that either. So I don't blame them, right? But they know that Ldbc is at odds with Terence Crawford, so they gonna ride with Bud. That's all the fuck a lot of that is. A lot of them can't even tell you who Bud beat at 140 to be undisputed. A lot of them can't even tell you who he beat at 135, right? They can't tell you what he did. They can't tell you none of that. They can't tell you his best performances. They really can't. They just riding with Bud because Bud, a lot of them can, but a lot of them just riding with Bud because they feel like, oh, he's a guy that's opposed to the Ldbc. That's it. So I know what time it is, and they're using a fake fandom as their proxy in the Ldbc PBC hate. Y'all know I ain't lying. Y'all know I'm not lying when you see that this shit is clear as fucking day. Clear as day. Because they were saying Terence wasn't shit when he was looked at as an opponent to Terence to Manny Pacquiao in 2015. He wasn't shit. He was trash. He was boring. He was like Mayweather, hit and run. Nothing exciting about him. Now he the best thing since sliced bread because he's going up against Errol Spence, pro-black Errol Spence. Knowledge of self-talking Errol Spence, who got Khalid Muhammad tattooed on him, Malcolm X tattooed on him. He's all against, oh my God, he's against the LDB supported Errol Spence Jr. We ride with Bud because of that. Now Bud, the best thing since sliced bread. Bud got a way better resume at 147 than Errol Spence. Cut it the fuck out. And I really respect Terence Bud Crawford and his fighting abilities. He's a great fighter. I'm more of an Errol Spence Jr. fan by far, and I always tell y'all that. But because of a lot of things out, like the knowledge of self that he displays, also the fighting abilities too. But I was a fan of Terence Bud Crawford first. I'm telling y'all that right now on this channel. I told y'all that before. I was a fan of Terence Bud Crawford first until I seen the stuff he was doing with the Ldbc, and that didn't resonate with me as a black man. You looking at them black YouTubers trying to make their money on YouTube, give them an opportunity to make their bread. They come out to support your fights. They at these media events, spending their hard-earned money, trying to do it. It's hard. Man, listen. Breaking through as a media guy on YouTube is hard in itself, right? Being a media guy. A lot of these black dudes, man, they come from the same walks of life that you come from. Support these young brothers, man, taking their time out to do something different and be creative, to be content creators. Especially when they riding to support you and they buying your fights, bud. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't vibe with that. I'm gonna be real. And I vibe with Errol because even if Errol can't talk long, he'll talk to him. He'll call in to speak with him. He'll stop and get a picture with him. He'll give him something. You know what I mean? You ain't got to sit and talk for 5 minutes. Hell, even 2-3 minutes. But Bud wouldn't do that shit. He sent Bomac over there, his little man, to talk. And I was just like, I couldn't vibe with that. And because after that, I'll see Bud sitting up with Joe Rogan, smiling, grinning ear to ear. And I was like, oh, man, that shit is weird. I couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? But Bud is an exceptional talent. But a lot of y'all just riding with him because he's an adversary of Errol Spence Jr. and the Ldbc is at odds with him. Y'all don't fuck with Bud like that. If y'all did, Bud would be selling a whole lot more than what he does. I'm talking about a lot of the non-black fight fans who are criticizing the Ldbc and hate Errol Spence Jr. and calling him out because they thought I preferred him over Spence because I thought he was a straight guy. You saw that comment? I thought he was a straight guy. I don't see color black man at all. We don't talk about race. I'm not a race talking black man. Oh no, I'm just a good old boy. I'm just a good old. Everything is all right. Everything peaches and roses for the black man. I'm just don't talk about no race over here. I'm talking about. They thought that was Bud because he's from Omaha and he was over there with Bob Arum. He was over there with the white guy. He wasn't with the black savior. I'm not calling him the black savior, but how the black fighters that come to the PBC from another stable, they look at Al Heyman as a savior for them, right? He paid Paul, he take good care of Paul Williams even after Paul Williams had that accident. A lot of the black fighters praise Bob Arum and even the Al Heyman. A lot of the black fighters love and praise Al Heyman. And even the non-black fighters praise Al Heyman. Compared to Bob Arum, everybody leave from Bob Arum's side. Everybody get the fuck from over there all the time. So y'all let me know what that is. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, yeah, they look like, okay, Terence over there, he's from Omaha. He's not from a pro-black area from what they thought. He's not from a black area like that. He's with Bob Arum. We saw him in pictures with Warren Buffett. He's gotta be a straight edge guy. Then that straight, and then that shit with Bob Arum calling out racial bias. Oh my God, I thought he was different. I thought he wasn't one of those guys. I thought he was different from those other pro-black guys. Some of them, it turned them off, but they still ride with him because he's not all the way on the pro-black talk the same way Errol Spence is. So, they still going to ride with him, and he's not supported as heavily by the Ldbc like Errol Spence is. So they riding with Bud for that reason, man. Y'all knock it off. I know what y'all doing. Machiavelli Mills TV, I'm out. Peace.